Good morning. Today we're going to talk about mold. I had a recent experience with that really brought me back into my childhood that was full of chronic illness. All the memories, all the symptoms, all that were right back, and it just took me back decades. So stay tuned. This is going to be a real eye-opener. This is your Health Reclaimed, where we expose the root causes that fuel Lyme and chronic illness so you can finally heal, helping you to understand and heal the root cause of Lyme and chronic illness so you can reclaim your health, restore your life. I'm Dr. Brad Montagne, a veteran functional medicine doctor. For 4 decades now, we've been helping people get well and healthy that have been to multitudes of doctors, haven't gotten any help anywhere, and we get them healthy again. So recently, I had something that really brought me back into my younger days, way back to grade school, and we're talking a lot of decades ago. My brother had brought strep throat home. Oldest brother brought that home. I remember he got a bunch of rounds of antibiotics, so did I. And those antibiotics, I didn't know it at the time, didn't know why my life turned the way that it did, but that filled me full of all kinds of fungal infections. And when I was probably 5, I ended up in the hospital for the first time with typical thing the doctors say, here, take this, it'll make you feel better. No explanation as to what caused this, why I'm there, what's going on. Just said you got inflamed intestines and, it was gut-wrenching pain, and I got a pretty high pain threshold. So that started an interesting journey. Then a couple of years later, we went on a family vacation. Something happened on that vacation that turned my world upside down. Every time I'd move my head or go to turn, the whole world spun around me. I was nauseous, had vertigo, felt on the verge of puking 24/7, 365 days a year for years on end. It was a rare occasion when I had a day when I didn't feel like I was just ready to puke and the world was spinning around me. And that went on for many years. How many, I don't remember. It was a lot of years, though. And I had a recent experience that brought me all the way back into all that. Didn't know what had happened, but I got the whole vertigo back. The world was spinning around me, and I just felt nauseous. It was hard to stay up on my feet, hard to navigate once again, and it just brought back all of these childhood memories. And it took a few days to do some testing to actually figure out what all this was. And it's an interesting thing because this isn't what most people's experience is. And the stage that set it up the first time I got this wasn't there. And this is really the first case I've seen of a mold issue that wasn't set up by chronic fungal infections inside of a person. So in 40 years, pretty close to 40 years, we're then to 4 decades, of every case I've seen of mold being set up because of chronic fungal infections, and I don't have that. Haven't had that for a long time, decades. So this was a real odd one, and because it was so odd, it wasn't anything in the radar to even think about. So we had to put a bunch of pieces together to figure out, okay, what caused this? And it's an interesting combination of several things that always make people that are exposed to mold become symptomatic. Mold's never been the only thing, and it's almost never the primary thing, but it's just the straw that breaks the camel's back as far as health goes. So what set the stage for me is an odd thing. A lot of people know about this. Some people don't know about this. But since COVID started and people started getting vaccinations, this issue of them shedding the vaccinations, and what shedding is, there's a lot of toxicity with these vaccinations. And people are led to believe that the primary way that COVID has been spread is the typical way the viruses are spread. People breathe their air out. It has a spike protein in it. That spike protein goes into somebody else's lungs and it creates that whole nightmare issue that we call COVID. Actually, we, the government, and the powers to be call COVID. We found that to not really be the case. And generally all the people that we have seen have been told they had COVID in our testing, they didn't have COVID itself, they had shedding from being around the COVID vaccine. And the typical way of that happening is somebody gets a vaccine, the vaccine goes into their bloodstream. The vaccine, the mRNA one, tricks your cells into making the spike protein. And it will continue to do that until that whole system burns out. And that's why they keep doing the boosters, because it burns out or a new strain supposedly comes along. But once people start making that spike protein, it transfers the same way viruses do. As they breathe out all this spike protein, and with that, people take that in through their airways, and they get the same symptoms that the people do with what COVID was. Only they never got exposed to COVID. It was what was in the vaccine. A few years ago, we found that they were adding the vaccine into fumigants. And whenever you see this in a lot of products that are shipped, Amazon's probably the worst as far as that one goes. But we see that in other packages when they go through warehouses. Those warehouses were fumigated with antiviral issues, and it was pretty common for those antivirals to have the vaccine in it. So that's one way of getting exposed. If you get any packages that, whether you buy those in a big box mart, a store, something where they used to not have a scent and they have a scent now, that's one of the first things that we suspect is that. And we've tested a lot of those and a lot of people that have had those, and it's shown that the packages that have the scents in them that don't normally or didn't used to have scents in them, that's the fumigants that they're spraying the warehouses, whether that's for storage or for shipping or whatever. So this has been a very big way for all this transference to go on. I've seen some different articles where there are actually people filming mist coming out of streetlights. Has the same issue going on. So it kind of uncovers this huge divisive issue that's going on all over the place. But I've been exposed to some people that had a very highly toxic level of shedding. The shedding that they had was Johnson & Johnson. But Johnson & Johnson was pulled off the shelf for the boosters. It's basically outlawed. And then we've seen a lot of people getting shedding with Johnson & Johnson. So the real question is, where's it coming from? If they closed down the boosters, what's J&J doing with all their vaccine? And from putting the things together that we've been seeing for a lot of years, it appears that those went into fumigants. And that's how people are getting exposed. And they've added some things to those over the years. First thing that they did is over a couple of years ago, they added a hot-rodded Epstein-Barr and Mycoplasma. And I'd been considering taking Mycoplasma out of my testing kit. And all of a sudden, inside of 1 to 3 weeks, we have people on the West Coast, the East Coast, and through the Midwest with shedding, Mycoplasma, Epstein-Barr, and there's always graphene oxide in with the vaxes too. And when that happened, I looked at my wife and said, "This is a new COVID. This could be the next strain." Within 2 months, it was all over the world, global, and you had Mycoplasma that basically didn't exist in China and other countries. And the thing with Mycoplasma, it's a weird bacteria that doesn't have a cell wall. So antibiotics don't work for it. And the Mycoplasma gives you some of the worst cases of pneumonia and bronchitis. And it takes away your ability to absorb, take in, transfer, deposit, and utilize oxygen. So you're stuck at an oxygen depleted stage, and Epstein-Barr knocks out your gut. A lot of people believe you can't get rid of Epstein-Barr. We've got a lot of years of getting people over Epstein-Barr, and it's only a matter of weeks to get people free of it. You just got to do the right things. And you got to set a bunch of things, set the stage for those things to work. You always got to build off of foundations, good nutrition, multi-fish oil, calcium, some other nutrients, and then you can go after things that you go after. But if you don't do the foundational things, those don't work. So I'd been exposed to J&J with Mycoplasma, Epstein-Barr. It was over a year ago, they added a very toxic estrogen to some of those vaxes, and that was estrase. And that was in what I got exposed to. So that beat me up. And the immune system's busy trying to deal with that because this is something new, a new combination, which I'd been exposed to a lot of people with other things. But J&J had been more of a rare one. So there wasn't really a lot of resistance against that, and it was hot-rodded too. So my immune system's all beat up with that. And then our water started going bad. And I went down to check the water. Well, we tested the water supply. It had gone bad. And it appeared to be mold. I went down and took the filters apart. And sure enough, on the top sealing ring of the filter, inside the canister, there's mold growing. And I'd not seen that in our water systems before. We've seen that in other people's water systems and have people cleanse those containers and the receptacle they screw into with vinegar, and that'll kill it. So I'd been doing that, but this grew up on the top, and it wasn't until I got a flashlight and a mirror that I could actually see the mold growing up in the top of the canister where the filter goes. So I'd scrub all that out, clean all that out with vinegar, kill everything, and then put it back together, and the water's been fine. But that's what brought that in. The mold bypassed the typical way, it was through the lungs into the gut, and the gut's where all your immune system's set up. But the immune system is busy dealing with the Mycoplasma, Epstein-Barr, the J&J vaccine, and the mold comes in. And there's just not the strength to deal with it. And it's brought me all the way back into my childhood because it's exactly how I felt for a lot of years. And I've not experienced that in a long, long time. We're talking, it's well over 5 decades, well over 5 decades. So once again, then we got to go back through the foundational issues and check those, and those were there, but the J&J is different than what we usually see. Mostly what we see is Moderna, Pfizer, secondarily, and J&J was just been a rare few. So that took a different approach than the typical Moderna, and Pfizer's different than Moderna, and J&J's different than both of those. So it took a different approach with that. It took a while to start to clear this stuff, and slowly the vertigo went away, and the world quit spinning. The nausea cleared out, and could actually think straight once again with the higher levels of oxygen functioning, and all of these things that are taking all the energy of the immune system to be put into check so the immune system can actually deal with all of that. So makes me rethink what I've been saying for a long time, is that it's primarily candida and a leaky gut that sets the stage for people to be responsive to the mold. It was still, the shedding had still tied up all of the immune function inside of the gut, but it was tied up from something that I'd just not seen. And it was my own self, and when you're beat up, it's hard to figure these things out. Plus, I can't test myself. People think they can test themselves. They're just wrong. I've got to have somebody else to test me, and then I can interpret that and help them interpret it. Somebody else has to test me. You can't test these things yourself. And you can't just guess because it's completely different. So this was an eye-opener. It's humbling that something like this go on. It's humbling that mold would grow in an area where I thought I was taking care of it. And how that got introduced there, I don't know. We'd had some mold problems, or not mold, but some problems with our cisterns. Our well doesn't work very well, so we're off spring water. And I've been the last couple of days repairing the cisterns up there so that they quit leaking and we have a good water flow once again. Looks like that's well on its way to do that. So we're addressing all those issues, and this is a really critical issue. So to recap all this stuff, I got a bunch of symptoms that took me all the way back into my young childhood, early grade school days, when I had chronic illness, the whole world spun around me, had vertigo, the world spin around, nauseous, feeling on the verge of puking 24/7, 365 days a year for a lot of years in a row. How many, I have no idea, but it was a lot. And what happened to me brought me back there, and it was the mold exposure that did all of this. And it was shedding that set me up for that, J&J shedding, which had been outlawed as far as being in the boosters. So there's no other way for that to come in. And a way to deal with all of those things to clear that out. And once it did, start to clear, but it's eye-opening, it's humbling, and it makes me rethink what I've been saying, but the bulk of it doesn't change. It's always been a primary gut issue when people have problems with mold, but it doesn't always have to just be candida and leaky gut. It can be something like shedding that creates a leaky gut. I'm Dr. Brad, a veteran functional medicine doc. If you like this, share this with some other people, leave a review, and pass this around. It'll keep us going and get some other people to learn some of these really key issues. We release these every Monday and Thursday. Subscribe to or just follow us and check out what we're putting out, because we're talking about things that most people don't. So thanks. Have a great day.